My fiancé said, "Don't call me your future husband." I nodded. That night, I quietly removed my name from every guest list he'd made. 2 days later, he walked into lunch and froze at what waited on his chair. The envelope on my chair was black leather, embossed gold lettering. "Open it," my fiancé said from the podium, grinning into the microphone. I stood there in the Watergate Hotel ballroom, 300 people staring at me, and felt my throat close. This was supposed to be my engagement celebration. Our engagement celebration. But Vanessa hadn't introduced me as her fiancé. She'd called me my dear friend Tyler 4 times in the past hour. Now she was pointing at me like I was part of the entertainment. "Go on, Tyler. Open it. I promise it's not a breakup letter." The room laughed. I picked up the envelope. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Inside was a single card. Heavy stock. Expensive. "Thank you for your generous support of Vanessa Chen's mayoral campaign. Your contribution of $850,000 has been noted. We look forward to your continued patronage." Below it, in Vanessa's handwriting, "You've been such a good little donor. Don't worry. I'll find someone worthy of standing beside me." The room was silent. I looked up at Vanessa. She was smiling, waiting for me to react, to break down, to make a scene she could use later. He got emotional, poor thing. Instead, I smiled back. "You're right," I said, voice carrying clearly across the ballroom. "You do need someone worthy." I walked out. Behind me, I heard confused murmuring. Vanessa's voice calling my name, sweet and concerned. Her public voice, the one she used for cameras. I kept walking. In the parking garage, I sat in my 12-year-old Subaru Outback and made 3 phone calls. The first was to my attorney. "Garrett, it's Tyler Ashford. Execute the extraction protocol for Vanessa Chen. Everything. Immediately." Garrett Morrison had been my family's attorney for 23 years. Former federal prosecutor. Current partner at Morrison & Hale. "Understood," he said. "The super PAC funding? Terminate it. Tonight. Before midnight. The campaign headquarters lease? Her name is on it, but my trust owns the building. Initiate eviction proceedings. Give her the legal minimum notice. The staff salaries? Those are paid through the Chen Campaign Fund, which is funded entirely by the Ashford Foundation. Cut off all transfers. And the media consultant contracts? Void them. Breach of moral character clause. I'll send you the documentation." I hung up. The second call was to my cousin, Dr. Naomi Ashford, chief of staff at Georgetown University Hospital. She'd been begging me to join the board of directors for 2 years. "Naomi, I'm ready to accept that board position, but there's something you need to know about one of your donors first." The third call was to my grandfather, Harrison Ashford III, former Secretary of Commerce, current CEO of Ashford Holdings, the kind of man who had presidents on speed dial. "Tyler," he said, voice warm, "how's the engagement party?" "It's over." Silence. Then, "What happened?" She called me her dear friend in front of 300 people, then made a joke about how much money I've given her campaign. "That girl has no idea who you are, does she?" "No, sir." "Good. Keep it that way until tomorrow. Then burn her entire house down. Legally." "Already started." He laughed. A sharp, satisfied sound. "That's my grandson. Call me when it's done." I drove home in the rain, watching the Washington Monument disappear behind fog, and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. The problems started 8 months ago, though I didn't recognize them at the time. I'd met Vanessa at a Georgetown fundraiser. She was running for city council. Young, ambitious, photogenic. The kind of candidate who looked good on posters and spoke in sound bites that tested well with focus groups. I was there representing my family's foundation. We'd donated to the venue. Quiet money. No recognition expected. Vanessa approached me first. "You look bored," she said, champagne in hand. "Networking events aren't my thing." "What is your thing?" "Urban development policy, specifically affordable housing initiatives." She blinked. "Seriously?" "I wrote my thesis on it. Johns Hopkins public policy program." Her smile shifted, became genuine. "That's actually what my campaign is focused on. Have you read the Morrison report on housing displacement?" We talked for 2 hours. She was smart, well-informed, passionate about the right things. When she asked for my number, I gave it to her. Our first date was at a Thai restaurant in Adams Morgan. She insisted on splitting the check. Said she didn't believe in traditional gender roles or the expectation that men should pay. I respected that. Our second date was a walk through the National Arboretum. She talked about her vision for DC, affordable housing, education reform, police accountability. She had plans, real, detailed plans. I fell for her vision before I fell for her. By month 3, we were serious. She met my parents, or rather, she met my parents believing they were retired teachers, which was technically true. They'd both taught economics before my grandfather recruited them into the family business. She never asked what the family business was. I didn't volunteer. Operational security. Keep your private life private. Never let people treat you differently because of your name. My grandfather's rules. I'd lived by them for 29 years. By month 6, Vanessa was running for mayor. An aggressive jump, city council to mayor, but her polling was strong. Young voters loved her. Progressive donors loved her. And I loved her. So when she asked me to help with her campaign, I said yes. She needed funding, lots of it. Mayoral races in DC cost millions. I set up a super PAC through my family's foundation. Nothing illegal. Completely transparent, legally speaking, but structured so the money came from Ashford Foundation without highlighting that I was an Ashford. Vanessa thought the foundation liked her policies. She had no idea I was the foundation. I leased her a campaign headquarters, prime location, 14th Street corridor, 20,000 3,000 square feet. She thought she'd gotten a sweetheart deal from a friendly landlord. She didn't know my trust owned the entire building. I hired her senior staff, connected her with consultants, made introductions to donors who mattered. She thought I was just well connected. She didn't know I was the connection. And I told myself it was fine, that I was supporting her vision, that she'd earned the help. But the truth was simpler. I was in love, and I was hiding who I was because I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. Classic mistake. The first red flag came in March. Vanessa and I were at her campaign headquarters. Late night. She was stressed about polling numbers. I need a bigger media buy, she said, staring at spreadsheets. But we're tapped out. The foundation maxed out their contribution limit. There are other donors, I said carefully. Who? I've called everyone. Nobody wants to commit until they see movement in the polls. What about personal wealth? She looked at me. Tyler, I don't have personal wealth. My parents are accountants. I work in nonprofit development. This campaign is bankrupting me. I could help. With what? You're a policy consultant. You make, what, $60,000 a year? I'd never told her I was a policy consultant. She'd assumed it. Something like that, I said. Then how would you help? You're barely covering your own rent. I actually owned my condo outright, but she'd seen my Subaru, my off-the-rack clothes, my refusal to eat at expensive restaurants, and built a story. I was the struggling but passionate policy wonk who believed in her vision. It wasn't entirely wrong. I did believe in her vision, but I wasn't struggling. I'll figure something out, I said. That night, I transferred another $200,000 into the super PAC, routed through 3 intermediary organizations. Completely legal, completely invisible. Vanessa's media buy went through. She never asked where the money came from. The second red flag came in May. We were at a donor dinner, high-dollar event, $1,000 a plate. I'd bought a table, 8 seats, filled them with family friends, people who'd donate to Vanessa's campaign as a favor to me. Vanessa worked the room brilliantly, shaking hands, remembering names, making everyone feel important. But when she got to our table, something shifted. She introduced me to a major donor, William Reeves, CEO of a regional development firm. This is Tyler, she said, hand on my shoulder. He's been such a great supporter, helps with policy research, very detail-oriented. Detail-oriented. Like I was her assistant. Reeves looked at me. You work for the campaign? I volunteer. Tyler's very passionate, Vanessa said, squeezing my shoulder. He does a lot of the boring work nobody else wants to do. The table laughed politely. I forced a smile. Later that night, in her apartment, I brought it up. Why did you introduce me like that? Like what? Like I'm your intern. She frowned. Tyler, you're being sensitive. I was complimenting you. You do help with policy research. You made it sound like that's all I do. Isn't it? I stared at her. Vanessa, I'm your fiancé. Right. And you're also my policy volunteer. Those aren't mutually exclusive. You didn't introduce me as your fiancé because it was a donor event. I need them to see me as professional, serious, not as someone who brings her boyfriend to work functions. We're engaged, and that's personal. This was business. She kissed me on the cheek and went to bed. I sat on her couch for 2 hours, trying to convince myself she was right, that I was being overly sensitive, that separating personal and professional was smart, but something in my chest had gone cold. The third red flag came in July. Vanessa's campaign was gaining momentum. She'd pulled ahead in 3 polls. Major endorsements were coming in. She was also getting more public attention. News interviews, podcast appearances, magazine profiles. One profile, in DC Metro magazine, included a photo spread of her authentic life. There were pictures of her apartment, her campaign office, her jogging route. I wasn't in any of the photos. The article mentioned she was focused on her career and not interested in romantic distractions. When I asked her about it, she shrugged. The photographer wanted to include you. I said no. Why? Because it would raise questions. People would want to know who you are, what you do, how we met, and frankly, Tyler, your story isn't interesting enough to help the campaign. My hands went cold. My story. You're a policy consultant. You volunteer for progressive causes. That's great, but it doesn't add anything to my narrative. I'm your fiancé. Right. And that's why I'm protecting you from scrutiny. If people started digging into your background, asking questions about your family or your finances or your connections, it could create problems. What kind of problems? The kind where people accuse me of nepotism or favoritism or being funded by secret money. I almost laughed. Vanessa, you are being funded by secret money. What? The super PAC, the foundation donations, the headquarters lease. Where do you think all of that came from? She stared at me. From people who believe in my vision. Right. People, not person. Tyler, what are you saying? I nearly told her everything right there. Nearly explained that I was the Ashford behind Ashford Foundation, that my family's money built half of Northwest DC, that I could make or break her campaign with a single phone call. But something stopped me. Pride, stubbornness, the desperate hope that she'd see me without needing to know my bank balance. Nothing, I said. Forget it. She studied me for a moment, then smiled. You're stressed. The campaign is stressful. I get it. Why don't you take a few days off from volunteering? Recharge. I'll handle things. Take a few days off. From supporting the campaign I'd funded. From helping the candidate I'd built. Sure, I said. Good idea. I didn't volunteer for the next week. She didn't notice. The fourth red flag, the one that should have been the last, came in August. Vanessa's campaign manager quit. Personal reasons, family emergency, gone in 48 hours. She was panicking. I need someone immediately. Someone who knows the campaign inside and out. Someone who can keep everything running. I could help, I said. Tyler, no. This is a professional professional position. I need someone with experience. I have experience in policy research. This is campaign management, strategy, fundraising, media relations. You've never done any of that. I'd been doing all of that for her for 8 months, but she didn't see it. She hired someone else, a consultant from New York, expensive, abrasive, someone who immediately started questioning every decision the previous manager had made, including the building lease. This is way too good to be true, the new manager, Patricia Cole, 20 years in political consulting, told Vanessa in a meeting I was volunteering at. Who's the landlord? I don't know, Vanessa said. The lease is through some trust. Ashford Holdings or something. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Ashford Holdings, the development company, I guess. Vanessa, do you know who they are? They're one of the biggest private real estate firms in the region. They don't give sweetheart deals to political campaigns. Well, they did. Why? Maybe they like my housing policy? Patricia looked skeptical but dropped it. I sat in the corner, invisible, and watched them discuss my family's company like it was a mystery. The engagement party was Vanessa's idea. We need to formalize our relationship publicly, she said in September. Show donors that I'm stable, committed, ready for leadership. I thought you wanted to keep our relationship private. That was before. Now I'm the front runner. People want to see the whole package. The whole package. Me and my life partner. Someone who supports my vision. Your fiancé. Right, but we need to be smart about how we present it. We spent 2 weeks planning. Vanessa invited 300 people. Donors, politicians, journalists, community leaders. I invited no one. Don't you want your family there? She asked. They're low-key people. This isn't their scene. What about friends? I'll celebrate with them separately. The truth was simpler. I didn't want my grandfather showing up and accidentally revealing who I was. Didn't want my cousin mentioning the hospital board. Didn't want anyone connecting the dots. I was still hoping Vanessa would see me first. The party was held at the Watergate Hotel. Vanessa's choice, iconic, historic, perfect for photos. The bill was $23,000. I paid it through a shell company. Vanessa thought a donor had covered it. The night of the party, I arrived early. Wore my best suit, navy, well-fitted, nothing flashy. Vanessa was already there, holding court with reporters. She looked stunning. Red dress, perfect makeup, the kind of woman who photographed like a magazine cover. When she saw me, she smiled, but her eyes flicked to someone behind me, a photographer, and her smile shifted, became performative. Tyler, she kissed my cheek. You made it. Of course. Go mingle. I need to finish these interviews. I mingled. Talked to donors I'd helped recruit, staff I'd helped hire, consultants I'd connected her with. None of them knew who I was. At 7 p.m., Vanessa took the stage. Thank you all for being here tonight. This campaign has been incredible, and it's because of people like you, people who believe in a better DC. Applause. I also want to acknowledge someone special, my dear friend Tyler, who's been such a wonderful supporter. She pointed at me. Dear friend, not fiancé, not partner, friend. The room clapped politely. I stood there, feeling something crack in my chest. She continued. Tyler has helped with policy research, volunteer coordination, all the unglamorous work that makes campaigns run. He's been a great asset to the team. Asset to the team. I looked at my hand. The engagement ring I'd bought her, 3 months' salary by traditional standards, though that calculation didn't mean much for me, was on her finger, but she hadn't mentioned our engagement. After the speech, I found her in the back hallway. Vanessa, Tyler, great event, right? You called me your friend. What? You introduced me as your dear friend, not your fiancé. She blinked. Oh, right. I thought about saying fiancé, but it felt too personal for a campaign event. This is our engagement party. It's a donor appreciation event that doubles as our engagement party. You invited 300 people to celebrate our engagement and didn't mention we're engaged. Her expression hardened. Tyler, don't do this. Not tonight. Do what? Make everything about you. This is my night, my campaign, my moment. I thought it was our moment. It would be if you'd done anything worth acknowledging. The words hit like a physical blow. Excuse me? Look, Tyler, I appreciate what you do. I really do. But let's be honest. You're a volunteer, a policy researcher. You're not a major donor. You're not a political operative. You're not someone these people need to know. Vanessa, I need to be smart about optics. If I introduce you as my fiancé, people will ask questions. What does he do? How much does he make? Is he using her for political access? I can't afford those questions right now, so you're hiding me. I'm protecting both of us by pretending I don't exist, by keeping our personal relationship separate from my professional life. She touched my arm. Tyler, please, try to understand. This campaign is everything to me. I need people to see me as strong, independent, someone who earned this, not someone who got help from a boyfriend. I'm not your boyfriend. I'm your fiancé, and that's beautiful. But tonight, can you please just let me have this moment? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone I didn't recognize. Sure, I said quietly. Have your moment. I walked back into the ballroom. That's when I saw the envelope on my chair, the black leather envelope with the thank you note about my generous donation. And I knew she'd put it there, a private joke, a reminder that my role was to write checks, not stand beside her. I opened it in front of everyone, read the note, felt 300 pairs of eyes on me, and I left. Garrett called me at midnight. It's done. Super PAC funding terminated, building lease voided, staff contracts canceled, campaign account frozen. She'll wake up to a very different financial reality tomorrow. What about the media consultants? They're pulling their teams, Breach of contract. They'll announce it publicly. Makes them look principled. Good. Tyler, you should know. This is going to destroy her campaign. She has nothing without your infrastructure. I know. You're sure you want to do this? I thought about the envelope on my chair. The way she'd called me her dear friend in front of 300 people. The 8 months of pretending I was small so she could feel big. Yes. Okay. One more thing. Your grandfather asked me to prepare a press statement in case this becomes news. What kind of statement? The kind that clarifies the Ashford Foundation's reasons for withdrawing support. Moral character concerns, misrepresentation of endorsements, that sort of thing. Hold it. Don't release it unless she makes this public first. Understood. I hung up and sat in the dark, watching the Washington Monument blink red in the distance. The next morning, my phone exploded. Texts from Vanessa, calls, voicemails. Tyler, what happened? The campaign account is frozen. The headquarters is being evicted. The consultants are backing out. Tyler, call me. I didn't answer. Instead, I met with Naomi at Georgetown University Hospital. She was waiting in her office. Corner suite, 15th floor, view of the Potomac. Dr. Naomi Ashford. Johns Hopkins Medical School, 15 years in cardiac surgery. Chief of staff for 3 years. Tyler, she stood smiling. I'm thrilled you're joining the board, though I suspect this is going to make waves. Why? Because you're an Ashford, and you've been invisible for years. People are going to ask questions. Let them. She studied me. What happened? Someone needed to learn what I'm worth. The fiancé? Ex-fiancé. Naomi's smile went sharp. Good. She never deserved you. And the board announcement went out that afternoon. Georgetown University Hospital is pleased to welcome Tyler Ashford III to its board of directors. Mr. Ashford serves as managing director of the Ashford Foundation and brings extensive experience in urban development policy and philanthropic strategy. It was a small announcement, buried in the hospital's press releases. But in DC, small announcements reach the right people quickly. By 5 p.m., 3 journalists had called me. By 6 p.m., someone had connected the dots between Tyler Ashford and Ashford Holdings. By 7 p.m., someone had connected Ashford Holdings to Vanessa's campaign headquarters. By 8 p.m., the story broke. DC mayoral candidate loses major financial backing after personal dispute. Sources confirm that Ashford Foundation, primary funder of Vanessa Chen's mayoral campaign, has withdrawn all support following an undisclosed incident. The foundation, controlled by the prominent Ashford family, had contributed nearly $850,000 to Chen's campaign through a super PAC. Tyler Ashford III, grandson of former Commerce Secretary Harrison Ashford, was recently engaged to Chen. The engagement has reportedly been terminated. Vanessa called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. Day 2 brought the collapse. Vanessa's campaign released a statement. I am deeply disappointed by the Ashford Foundation's decision to withdraw support. Their funding was never conditional on my personal relationship with Mr. Ashford, and I question the ethics of using donor money as leverage in a private dispute. It was the wrong move. Garrett released our counterstatement immediately. The Ashford Foundation withdrew support due to concerns about Ms. Chen's character and integrity. Our funding decisions are based on alignment with our values. Recent events revealed a pattern of behavior inconsistent with those values. We wish Ms. Chen well in her future endeavors. Pattern of behavior, character concerns, the kind of language that makes donors nervous. By afternoon, 3 more major donors had pulled out. By evening, her campaign manager, Patricia Cole, had resigned. Her statement was damning. I joined the Chen campaign believing in her vision for DC. However, I cannot in good conscience continue working for a candidate who misrepresents her relationships and funding sources to voters. The public deserves honesty from its leaders. Vanessa's campaign was hemorrhaging. Staff quit, volunteers disappeared, polling dropped 12 points in 3 days, and she still didn't understand why. The lunch was her campaign's attempt at damage control, a grassroots supporter appreciation event at the Hamilton, 50 donors, small dollar contributors, the kind of people who gave $25 or $50 because they believed in her message. She'd advertised it as intimate and authentic. I wasn't invited, but Garrett called me that morning. Tyler, something you should know. Vanessa's planning to make a speech at her lunch event today. About you. What kind of speech? The kind where she paints herself as the victim. You as the vindictive ex who sabotaged her campaign. She's going to position this as a feminist issue. Powerful man trying to destroy successful woman. My jaw tightened. She's going to lie. Publicly. Then I need to be there. I was hoping you'd say that. I'll meet you there. Bring David from our litigation team. And Tyler, wear the Navy suit. The one you wore to your grandfather's state dinner. Why? Because you need to look like who you actually are. I arrived at the Hamilton at noon. The event was in a private room. Glass walls. I could see Vanessa inside, smiling and shaking hands with supporters. She looked confident, energized, like she thought this would be her comeback moment. Garrett and David were waiting outside. David Chen, no relation to Vanessa, had been with Morrison and Hale for 8 years. Former DOJ prosecutor, the kind of attorney who made judges nervous. Everything's ready, he said, handing me a black leather folder. Documentation is thorough. We have receipts, wire transfers, lease agreements, communication logs, everything time-stamped and notarized. And the other thing? It's handled. I walked into the room. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Vanessa was mid-sentence with a donor. She froze when she saw me. I found a seat in the back. Garrett and David David flanked me. Vanessa recovered quickly. Her public smile clicked into place. Tyler, what a surprise. I didn't know you were coming. I wasn't invited, but I thought I should hear what you have to say. Her smile flickered. Of course, you're always welcome. She turned back to her supporters, but her movements were less confident. She kept glancing at me. Lunch was served. Salad, salmon, wine. I didn't touch mine. At 12:30, Vanessa stood to speak. Thank you all for being here. These past few days have been difficult. As many of you know, my campaign faced unexpected financial challenges when a major donor withdrew support. Sympathetic murmurs from the crowd. What you might not know is that this donor was my former fiancé, Tyler Ashford. She gestured toward me. Tyler and I had a relationship. I cared about him deeply. But when I chose to keep our personal lives separate from my campaign, when I chose to maintain my independence and my integrity, he used his family's wealth to punish me. The room gasped. He withdrew nearly $1 million in funding. He evicted my campaign from our headquarters. He used his connections to destroy relationships with consultants and media partners, all because I wouldn't let him control me. She was crying now. Actual tears. This is what women face in politics. When we refuse to be controlled, when we insist on our own power, powerful men try to destroy us. Applause. Some people were standing. Vanessa looked at me. Tyler, if you're here to intimidate me, it won't work. I'm not afraid of you or your family's money. I'm going to rebuild this campaign, and I'm going to win, because DC deserves a leader who can't be bought or controlled. The room erupted. I waited for the noise to settle. Then I stood. May I respond? Vanessa blinked. This isn't really a debate format. It's not a debate. It's a clarification. I walked to the front of the room. Garrett handed me the black folder. My name is Tyler Ashford III. Many of you might not know me. That was intentional. I prefer to work behind the scenes. Support candidates quietly. Let the work speak for itself. I opened the folder. For 8 months, I supported Vanessa's campaign. Not just financially, but structurally. I leased her the campaign headquarters through my family's trust. I connected her with consultants. I helped develop her policy platform. I introduced her to donors who became major contributors. I pulled out the first document. Here's the wire transfer showing the initial super PAC funding, $200,000. February 14th. I held it up so the room could see. Here's the lease agreement for the campaign headquarters. Ashford Holdings to Chen for mayor campaign. Below market rate, $14,000 a month for a space worth $40,000. Another document. Here are the consultant contracts. Media strategy, digital advertising, opposition research, all paid through the Ashford Foundation, all at my direction. The room was silent now. Vanessa told you I withdrew funding to punish her for maintaining her independence. That's not accurate. I pulled out my phone, called up a photo. This is the envelope I found on my chair at our engagement party. An engagement party she invited 300 people to, but never mentioned we were engaged. I showed them the thank you note, the one mocking me for being a generous donor. She put this there, as a joke. A reminder that my role was to fund her campaign, not stand beside her as her partner. Vanessa's face had gone white. She called me her dear friend in her speech that night, not her fiancé. Friend, because acknowledging our relationship would make her look weak, dependent, less impressive to donors. I looked at her. You told me I wasn't interesting enough to help your campaign, that my story wasn't worth telling, that I should stay in the background where I belonged. Tyler, I didn't mean... You meant exactly that, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion about me, but you're not entitled to my money, my family's connections, or my continued support while you humiliate me publicly. I turned back to the crowd. I didn't withdraw funding to punish Vanessa for being independent. I withdrew funding because she treated me like an ATM while presenting herself as self-made. She built her campaign on my family's infrastructure while telling voters she'd done it all herself. I pulled out one final document. This is a statement from Patricia Cole, Vanessa's former campaign manager. She resigned because, and I'm quoting here, candidate Chen systematically misrepresented the sources and extent of her campaign funding, creating ethical concerns about transparency and honesty with voters. I set it on the table. So yes, I withdrew my family's support. Not because Vanessa refused to be controlled, but because she was dishonest. With voters, with donors, with me. Silence. Then someone in the back started clapping. Slowly at first. Then others joined. Not everyone, but enough. I walked toward the door. Garrett and David followed. Vanessa called after me. Tyler, wait. Please. Let me explain. I stopped. Turned. You've had 8 months to explain. To see me. To introduce me as your fiancé instead of your intern. You made your choice. I made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes. But the biggest one was thinking I'd stay invisible forever. I walked out of the Hamilton into the bright October sunlight. Behind me, I heard chaos. Shouting. Crying. Garrett put his hand on my shoulder. Well done. Is it over? Politically? Yes. Her campaign is finished. But there's going to be fallout. Media coverage. Maybe legal action from donors who feel misled. Let them sue. We have documentation for everything. And personally, what do you mean? How do you feel? I thought about it. 8 months of supporting someone who saw me as a tool. 8 months of being small so she could feel big. 8 months of believing that if I just gave enough, did enough, she'd eventually see me. Relieved, I said finally. I feel relieved. The media firestorm lasted a week. Vanessa gave 3 interviews trying to defend herself. Each one made made things worse. She called me controlling, manipulative, vindictive. She suggested my family was trying to buy political influence. She implied I'd threatened her. Each accusation was carefully documented and disproven by Garrett's team. Bank records showing every transaction was voluntary. Emails showing I'd never asked for political favors. Text messages proving she'd requested and received every bit of support I'd given. By day 5, her remaining donors had withdrawn. By day 7, her primary opponent had pulled ahead by 23 points. By day 10, Vanessa dropped out of the race. Her statement was brief. After careful consideration, I've decided to suspend my mayoral campaign. This race has become about my personal life rather than my vision for DC. I wish the best for all candidates moving forward. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge the misrepresentation. She simply disappeared from public life. 3 months later, I sat in my grandfather's study. Harrison Ashford III, 81 years old, sharp as ever. You handled it well, he said, pouring bourbon. Better than I would have at your age. I made mistakes. Only one. You trusted someone who hadn't earned it. I loved her. Love and trust aren't the same thing. Love is what you feel. Trust is what you build. She never built it. He handed me the glass. Your grandmother taught me that. When we got married, she had more money than I did. Old railroad family. She could have held it over me. Could have made me feel small. She didn't? Never once. Because she understood that marriage is a partnership. Money doesn't matter. Power doesn't matter. What matters is whether you make each other bigger or smaller. He sipped his drink. Vanessa made you smaller every day, and you let her, because you thought that's what love required. I wanted her to see me. She did see you. She saw an opportunity, someone she could use without acknowledging. That's not love, Tyler. That's exploitation. He set down his glass. Your grandmother used to say the truest test of character is how people treat those they think can't help them. Vanessa thought you couldn't help her, or rather, that you could only help her by staying invisible. So she treated you like you were nothing. And when she found out who I really was, she still treated you like nothing, because that's who she is. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. What now? He asked finally. I don't know. Focus on the foundation. Maybe actually do policy work instead of funding other people's campaigns. Good. You're better at policy than you ever were at politics. Was I bad at politics? No, but you're honest. Politics requires performance. You hate performing. He refilled my glass. Here's my advice, since you didn't ask for it. Find someone who wants you visible. Someone who's proud to stand beside you, not in front of you or behind you. Someone who makes you bigger just by being there. Did you find that? I married it. 53 years. Best decision I ever made. I left his house that night and drove through Georgetown, past the university where Vanessa and I used to walk, past the Thai restaurant where we'd had our first date, past the apartment she'd lived in when I thought I'd found something real. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret. Just the quiet certainty that I'd done the right thing. 6 months after the engagement party, I got a letter. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a single page. Handwritten. Tyler, I know I don't deserve a response. I probably don't deserve to write this, but I need you to know. I'm sorry. I've spent 6 months in therapy trying to understand why I treated you the way I did. My therapist says it's about control, insecurity, imposter syndrome, fear that if people knew I'd had help, they'd think I didn't deserve my success. None of that excuses what I did. You gave me everything. Your money, your time, your trust, your love. And I repaid you by making you invisible, by pretending you didn't matter, by treating you like a resource instead of a person. I destroyed us. I destroyed my campaign. I destroyed any chance of being the leader I claimed I wanted to be. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking that you know. I see you now. I saw you then too, if I'm honest. I just didn't want to admit how much I needed you, because needing you made me feel weak. I was wrong. You weren't the one who needed to be invisible. I was. Take care of yourself, Tyler. You deserve someone who sees you from the start.